I'd like to call our meeting to order tonight for the Kitsap Public Facilities District on Monday, February 28th at 5:30. Instead of asking a question tonight, I'd like to instead ask for a moment of silence for all the Ukrainian people, as well as what's going on between, the war between Ukraine and Russia. And so felt like that might be a good use of this moment. So if you join me in a moment of silence. All right, thanks so much. We'll now move down to item number 2, which is our time for public comment. And so if there are any of you who have joined who would like to share something with the board, we set aside this time and allot you 3 minutes to just share whatever that would be. So if you are interested in making public comment, would you raise your hand, or would you indicate in the chat that you would like to make public comment, and then we will invite you on as a panelist and give you that option of speaking. I'm not seeing any hands raised. I'm not seeing anything typed in the chat. Russ, can you confirm that as well?
Just 1 second. I have 2 that have joined us. Alma and Bob Geit.
Hi.
Hi, Alma. Can you hear us?
I can.
Okay. And then Bob Geit. Can you hear us?
I can.
Okay. Okay. You all are led into the room. Did you have anything you'd like to say?
Russ, those are part of my team as well. They're from Blue Architecture.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, Russ, when you bring us on, if you could include all those people, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll include them all on this panel. So sure will. Thank you, Joel.
All right, then hearing nothing for public comment, we'll move forward to item number 3, approval of the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to remove any item from the consent agenda? And for board members, you'll need to speak because I have so many people now in my thing, in my little side panel, that I can't see you quite as easily as usual. So anyone wishing to remove any item from the consent agenda?
Aaron, I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
So I'd like to myself remove something from the consent agenda.
Okay.
And so I'd like to remove item number B. And the reason for doing it isn't that I have any question necessarily. I just want to do it as a formality so that we continue to learn how this works and so the public can see how it works. And so for item number B, we'll move that down under new business and we'll see to that item then. But just want to set the tone that, hey, just because something's in the consent agenda, any board member can ask and have that item removed, and we'll talk about it specifically. Are there any other items that anyone would want to remove from the consent agenda? All right. Then item number B will be moved down to new business. And if there are no more objections to these items, they'll be adopted. And then, John, would you go ahead now with your motion or your item?
Yeah, I'll motion to adopt the consent agenda, striking number B, letter B.
All right. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Walt. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
And any opposed say nay. All right. The consent agenda has been approved. We'll move on to item number 4 on our agenda for the facility progress report for the Port of Bremerton and the Circuit of the Northwest. And who will be our main lead?
This is Jim Rothland there. I can go ahead and kick it off.
All right, Jim, the floor is yours.
Okay. Don't have a lot to say, but for those that don't know me, I'm the CEO at the Port of Bremerton. So, and I have a team here that I will pass on to Joel. But I just kind of wanted to say that we're really excited to present our updates on the public use of this project, not only on the facilities part, but also the partners that are involved in making all this happen when it comes to the C-Stock arena, to the event arena, to the regional sports area, to see all the pieces start to come together and to see how it's going to happen is pretty exciting. So we're going to hopefully share some of that with you today. But what I'd like to do at this point is start by introducing Joel Cohen. He's the co-project manager from the Joel Cohen Group, and then he can move forward from there.
Hey, Jim, Russ, can you hear me?
I sure can.
Okay, having some connection problems here. Thanks, Jim, for the introduction. I would be remiss in thanking the Port of Bremerton, being one of our 2 public partners. Thank you, Jim, as the CEO, Arne Bacher. Can you see me, anybody?
No, we can't see you. I have you as a panelist though.
Let me see.
I see Bob.
I don't. It's not on your end, Joel. It's just the way this is set up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways,
Oh, there it
thanks.
is.
I work with the port a lot on the design and development of the phase 3, which is the public facilities. I'd like to publicly thank you, Jim, you and your team, Fred Salisbury, the COO, Arne Bacher, business development, and of course the 3 commissioners, Commissioner Anderson, Commissioner Bozeman, and Commissioner Stracklejohn. So thank you to the Port of Bremerton. And Russ, congratulations on becoming the new executive director.
Hey, Joel.
It's quite a task, and it's one heck of a facilities district. Does part of this, I think, for 4 years. So, and to the board, hello and good evening. We haven't been able to give you a Zoom update since August of 2021. So good evening to the board, and we thank you, CNW and the Port of Bremerton, thank you for your support of the public event centers at the Circuit of the Northwest. So having said that, I know your time is limited. I saw your agenda. It looks like, Russ, you have, is this my PDF?
Do you want me to?
No, it looks fine. I was going to present it in PowerPoint, but it may look a little shinier, but if you want to control the mouse, that would be great.
You bet. Just tell me when to advance.
Yeah, and if I do lose connection, I got 2 great people here. So on our team, we've talked about our 2 public partners, which we're very proud of, but let's talk about the Joel Cohen Group. And to do this type of project, you have to have the best of class. And with Blue Architecture located right there in Bremerton, we have the principal on the line, Robert Geit. Bob, you can say hello. I know you got a big part coming up, but Bob, thank you very much for being on this project.
Good to be here with you.
We're very lucky to have Blue Architecture on this team. We had another firm and it just didn't work out early on, and Bob's team is just excellent. And we have his Director of Business Development, Alma Sisk. I always kid her that we selected. She was the one that was the reason we selected Bob's group. So Alma, if you could say hello, it'd be great.
Hello.
Hi, Alma.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you for attending.
Of course.
You don't have any lunches to call in today. You're
No,
good.
I don't.
To the board, I also have my right-hand man, the co-project manager. He is known as an engineer. He's also known as a motorsports program manager. He's an owner's rep along with me, part of the Joel Cohen group, and his name is Andrew Girdham. Andy, are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound great. Where are you traveling? You here?
No, I'm actually got home. So.
Okay, you don't have video, but that's okay. So thank you for allowing us to do introductions, board and executive director Russ Shiplett. I'd like to now turn the project over to the co-project manager to run through our slideshow. It'll be Andy Girdham, and Andy, if you could work with Russ since he has control of the presentation. Thank you all.
Yeah, and Russ, I hope to step through these really quick. So I'm going to be saying next a lot. So, and we can go ahead and go to the next slide right now to start it. So as we all know, this is how it all started out. We had a couple of different centers we talked about for creating public event areas, and they both have different uses. You see the yellow, green, and blue. So we're talking about regional center, community center, event center, and then the parking for the whole thing. This has pretty much stayed the same. As we go through it, you'll see there's some changes that have occurred. Mostly those changes are access points and how we're moving people around and things like that. So the spaces themselves have not changed. The uses have not changed per se. And I think we've added a few things to the one community event center that really add a lot. And we've taken away a little piece of that track as well, so the road course, so to make a bigger area for the community event area. So if you go to the next slide, what I plan to do here is to kind of step through these really quick and then get over to the architecture so Bob can explain that. And then I'll come back to a lot of the utility issues. What you're seeing on this slide is a little bit of everything that we've kind of pushed into the project right now. You see that the one partner is C-Stock. You see that up there. They've got it's an indoor and outdoor facility. It has an outdoor venue. It's about 4,000. It's pushing a little bit, about 4,000, and then indoor center as well. There's small music event center at one end of the community area. There's a larger venue, amphitheater, at the other end. And we still have our regional sports area for hard surface entertainment. The parking area itself has not changed much. Like I said, access points have changed, and access points overall have changed too into the site. And we'll talk more about those. Probably that's more crucial to get into the architecture and see where that goes from there. But if you go to the next slide, we can kind of step through this. Once again, these are the areas we've talked about. You'll see the special event area, which has the amphitheater. You'll see 2 stages at that location. You'll see we're calling it a technology pad, but it's really a hard surface entertainment space. Can be used for many, many things. As part of your goals, it really does have that multi-use character to it, as do all the spaces right now. And the hospitality village is the parking area next to C-Stock. Once again, that has a multi-use as well, being able to be used for all types of hard surface events again, but also to provide support for everything from C-Stock to the other public event areas. So if you go to the next slide, please. This is just kind of a black and white of the overall layout as well. We'll get back into this a little bit more as we go through it. But here you see we start the architecture. And I think I have to pass that off to Bob at this point. Bob, can you talk a little bit about this?
Well, sure thing. And what you're looking at is an early image of the larger of the 2 outdoor amphitheater spaces. And this is actually in the process of changing right now. We are providing additional covered seating in front of the primary stage such that we can have 1,000 seats under cover, which we only had about 200 prior to this. And our goal really was to have a stage and infrastructure system that was comparable to a venue like the Gorge. And so the stage, the back of house support, and all of those features are roughly comparable in scale to what you would find at a venue like that. And we really targeted that because it is very successful. And much like we are taking advantage of the views of the Olympic Mountains and the Kitsap County terrain from the viewing area, they really capitalized on the site there. So a few views, and what we're trying to do is really tie it into the overall architecture of the campus. So again, that primary canopy is significantly larger now, and if there's a lot of curiosity, I have a design model of that we can fly around in, but primarily it's going to look like that, but it'll be significantly larger, and it's set up to really allow views to pass through when there's not a concert or other event going on. You can see in this image there are a lot of screens and speakers, and those would typically be provided by the performing group that's using the stage. The majority of the time you'll be able to see right through this event center and on out to the views of the track. We have set up the lawns opposite the stage, and whoever is clicking the buttons is doing a fantastic job. So congratulations. And you can see in the background that we've got a couple of concession areas, one large concession building that's near the ticketing area, and a grandstand, and then a couple of smaller ones that primarily serve a VIP area of the larger amphitheater, and then we have a smaller yet concessions building that serves the small amphitheater. I can see you scrolling through a whole lot of technical drawings that are included in the package, and if Andrew wants to wax poetic about the stormwater and the sewer and the grading, I'm going to turn that back over to him. But essentially, we are at about 45% of the design. You can see we've got some floor plans, cross sections, elevations, and we are continuing to move forward with this and are working with the schedule that Joel has provided for the project. Again, you can see that there's a pretty substantial bathroom facility at the primary concession building. And then in the center there, there's a concession area that can support either catered concessions or prepped on-site concessions. And it opens on both sides to the smaller or larger venue. You can see some stage plans, and again, this is not showing the recent expansion, but gives you a good feel for the size of the stage, which is still consistent with the larger canopy. And we've got some back of house green room, dressing areas, and those sorts of things. And then here you're seeing one of the smaller concession areas, and the floor plan and food service capabilities there. The small amphitheater is set up with a permanent primary concrete stage, and the intent with this one currently is to have a steel structure with canvas that can be removed in the winter months and really open up the views again across the site. And this we are continuing to develop, and this may well evolve from what you're seeing here. But, you know, again, we're planning to have covered stages for both of the primary amphitheaters. And the architecture that you see here with the single pitched roofs and the daylight coming in from above, again, is consistent with the primary clubhouse, with the Seastock Theater, and really ties the entire campus together. Our goal was really to give a sense of continuity going through, and we've also really targeted sustainable materials. The wood siding material that you see in some of the renderings is a recycled product that stains up just like wood, but is actually made from rice hulls, and is easily recyclable, and contributes to the lead performance of the project if we chose to accredit the project. And again, you can see that the concession and bathroom buildings are designed to allow ventilation and natural light into the spaces so that we really don't need to use a lot of artificial lighting. So after all of that, I'm going to pass it back to Andrew to talk about the site design, unless you have any questions.
Let me go ahead and go. Maybe we catch the questions at the end then.
I do. At the end, Bob, will you be able to share the more up-to-date design? I'd love to see that. So tack that on at some point.
Aaron, I can do that via screen share or email it to Fred, who can send it to Russ at the conclusion of the call.
Yeah, I also have the model up on my screen. So if you wish to pass the control of the screen share over, I'm glad to fly you guys around.
The only thing I would say, Aaron, is that we haven't had owner approval yet from Brian. It's only a kind of a direction that we're going in, as 1,000 seats seems to be the theme from our stakeholders and other professional management groups recommending, due to the weather, that 1,000 be covered. So we've gone in a different direction. So Bob, I don't have a problem showing it, but we have not gotten owner approval yet.
Well, you are
that's fine with me,
keeping your
guys.
finger on that pulse there.
Oh, hey, Brian, there's our owner.
Yeah, please. Yeah, please share.
Okay.
Go
Go
ahead.
right ahead, Bob.
You have share capabilities, so go right ahead.
Anyways, while he's finding that, it is Brian Nilsson, owner of the Circuit of Northwest. Russ, I think you guys have met.
Yeah.
But he's a grand, he's the perfect person to represent the public in a public facility. That's what his mission is: public facilities on public land. Oh, there you go, Bob. Great job.
So yeah, this is the larger canopy structure, and it gives a feel for the overall flavor of the venue here. We've got a few fake people in there, but I don't have the computing power on my laptop to fill every seat with a fake human. But again, it's a similar feel to what we had before. But the structure does come out a fair amount farther. But the principles of being able to see through the venue when a performance is not in process was the overall design goal. And then as you move back, you can see the performance from the lawn area. And then directly behind our view here would be the larger of the concessions buildings.
Bob, this is Walt Draper on a PFD. What are those structures on either side that look like fortifications?
Actually, those are intended to be very background, and we do wish to get some planting in front of those. But the building on the left here is where the green room, dressing rooms, performer restrooms are. And then the building or the structure here on the left has our storage and utility infrastructure.
Thank you.
We wanted to keep that nice and low and just really minimize it so that all eyes were on the stage. Any other questions before I pass this back? right.
I would just make a comment to the board and to Russ. In our next progress report, I think you'll probably be seeing these after I see Brian's reaction there. He kind of likes it. So you'll see this be a progress report if it passes for Brian. Thank you.
Yeah, we are currently getting these views rendered up so that it's comparable to some of the other images we've shown tonight, but the photorealistic version was not yet available. So you are seeing actual design in progress.
Thank you, Bob.
All right.
Yeah, I would just say something real quick, you guys. We will be able to use that for graduations also. We did the Olympic College graduation last year, and they were really excited to see, I know they'll be really excited to see that plan. And I've also been talking to some other school districts. So again, on the multi-use thing. So throw it back to you guys.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Bob. Andy G.
Sure. Well, there it is, back up. So what we're really just going through here was to show the overall plan again and really show that at the main amphitheater, there is handicap spaces, accessible spaces between the main event theater and the small stage. And that's perfect. Zoom in. Yeah, that's fantastic. So, so at that theater, then you have a number of things happening. You do have that concession. You have a couple concessions, actually. You have another smaller concession out by the small amphitheater as well, which has a restroom as well. All these are set up on the smaller venues to provide both concession and restroom as well, but nowhere near the size of the main amphitheater. So this area also is set up with a number of bus parking spots, as well as drop-off spaces, because we will be shuttling a fair number of people through the tunnel there up into the drop-off space, which is right as you're coming out of the tunnel up toward the entry to the theater, so to the amphitheater. Not a lot else to be said here. This is coming together pretty well. I don't see too many problems. We're also providing food trucks toward the smaller amphitheater areas, so there is space for that as well. What you see here now is one of the next slides that it really gets into where that parking area is. This is adjacent to the C-Stock Theater as well. So we're providing about 900 spaces here alone. So it provides a good amount of space. You'll see access from here to the infield area through a stair tower and elevator system, which is right kind of in the middle of that overall drawing. And that then allows you to be able to get people in and out. As we said before, there will be off-site parking, and we will bring quite a few people from off-site as well. So the tunnel, the drop-off spaces at the amphitheater is really needed. We'll also have that in the parking area itself for events that are up there. Like we talked about before, this is the main amphitheater area. There's bus spaces down toward the middle center of that drawing. As you get to the right side of that, you do have the drop-off area. But this is design of this has come together pretty well. Grading has been problematic just because of the amount of slope across there. So as we put the concession buildings up, about halfway to the stage area, the main amphitheater stage, that creates some problems, but we're working through those. I think it's going to work out really well. It has created some line of sight issues, but we've been able to deal with those as well. And what you see here is you see that we have been able to come up with preliminary utilities to serve all of the public event spaces. So there are some issues with serving some of this area out here, in particular capacity on some of the sewer. But as we get into that further, you'll see that what we've done is some equalization. We're working with the port right now. We have meetings ongoing with their consultants. There's another one tomorrow even concerning the amount of flow going to their waste facility. So utilities have been planned for. The overall layout's coming together real well. I think we're doing a good job with coming up with parking and access points through underground tunnels. Originally, we thought about some aerial walkways, but it's really serving better the site through underground tunnels. These are just more pictures of the same, basically showing access roads. Now, in our plans, we do include all access roads to be able to serve all of the public facilities. So therefore, it's already planned for then, and we have those design elements in there. So all grades have been set on all the access roads. We're finalizing plans on that. And as Bob said, about 45%, I'd say on the civil engineering side, they're a little further along than that. But we do have some issues that we still have to deal with. What you do see here is a piece around the north side of the road course. We don't need that necessary for access, so we are not including that in the design. So that will be included in the next phase, which is actually the private design project, which is separate from, as you know, from this public facilities design package. The only thing really left was really just showing how we're going to serve it at the end. If you go down to the very last slide there, what you'll be able to see is that this area is really talking about how we get access for utilities back out of the site, back in this case, equalization basins, to be able to handle the high peak flows and let the port handle that sewage capacity. So that's what I have. And that's just real quick so we can move on to questions if anybody has any.
Okay.
I had a quick question.
How we get access to the Phillies back out of the south of the site, back in the state's equalization basins to be able to handle the high peak flows and let the core handle that sewage capacity that I have. Just real quick so we can.
Somebody got recorded by Alexa.
I was going to say Alexa or Siri are out there talking something. So
Alexa's designing it. So
there you go.
I had a quick question. I think I saw something that said some capacity around 20,000 people for the amphitheater, but then I had heard something around 900 parking spaces. Is that just one spot, or
that's just one spot? So yeah, that's just the one, as you see it here, the Hospitality Village area. So that's just the one space there. Yeah, as we get into this, we're looking at two on a road course event, we're looking at about 2.5 people per car. And that's pretty consistent with a lot of the amphitheater stuff. Sometimes it goes down just a little bit to about 2. So that gives you an idea how many cars you really will need and how much area you will need. So there'll be a number of areas off-site as well as other facilities on-site that are not being included in this public facilities contract right now, but will be part of the overall project. That public-private sharing situation. So, and pretty much matching the goals on how we mix the public and private funds to get, a mixed-use facility that works. So, and we can go over those areas if you want to kind of know where they are. So,
I was just making sure there's plenty of parking. Nobody gripes more when there's not enough parking.
2 things: parking and restrooms. That's right.
Yeah, parking, restrooms, and access and egress out of that facility is going to be big items there. One of the things I was going to ask is that, are you taking any considerations for RV infrastructure type stuff for some of your events? I know a lot of these types of events attract folks pulling a trailer with race cars in it with their RV, and is there any of those going in?
So, and you see it on the drawing. Thanks, Shannon, for that question. I know you're here, so it's good to see you. So you'll see the RV stuff on the drawings there on the master plan, but realize that this is where, we're talking about public facilities here. I can't include any of that in the overall design right now. So that'll be designed as part of the private facilities. So they'll still be available for when we have other events, but because of the way, obviously, the regulations read, I can't include public and private design together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but yeah, they'll be there. Some other key points are really access points to the facility, because this is challenged up here from an access standpoint. We're ongoing with Washington DOT currently with our transportation consultant. They're looking at the main entrance there across from the airport. They're looking at another one further to the north, and then looking at one to the south. And those are being looked at right now to aid in serving the flow of traffic into the site. They will also take into account the other parking areas that are being accessed off-site. So
You also mentioned tunnels for access and egress, crossroads and roadways and stuff of that nature. I'm assuming that those will all be ADA compliant tunnel type.
Yeah, and that's a challenge, let me tell you. So,
Yeah.
You've seen the topography out there. You get that kind of topography, it gets real challenging. So that's why you see that elevator stair tower situation coming out of the Hospitality Village / event parking area, because we really had to get them down. That was the high side. As you get to the infield, we could still get them out of there with switchback ramps, but not from that side. We have to do two things to be able to get people in and out of there. So now the other access point, as we talked about, there's an area for handicapped spaces there between the main stage and the smaller stage, right, for the main event center. So there'll be quite a bit of parking in there, and we will have shuttles up into there for everybody. So,
And this might be a dumb question. Who's the area of jurisdiction? Is this county, Kitsap County? Or is this city of Bremerton?
For what?
The area having jurisdiction of review.
This is the city of Bremerton.
It
is city of Bremerton.
Yeah.
That's what.
And of course, you got Washington. The reason I say that, because obviously you got Washington DOT right on 3. You got some other areas that you got to deal with. Obviously, the Port of Bremerton has the sanitary facilities, so it's kind of a mix, Shannon. So
yeah, well, that's. I was just curious who was going to be reviewing the structure or the building plans.
Right.
Yeah, we just so you know, Shannon, we did meet with the city last Friday and talked about we're going to meet with them again just to do another preliminary permit meeting, just to make sure everybody's still aligned with what we're trying to do.
Great.
Shannon, just to kind of get you up to speed, we did have preliminary site plan approval prior, based on an old design. So we've been working along those lines, not to change too many things, at least not making it worse, right? So that's the way we're going at it. So. Any other questions by anybody?
I don't have another question, although I do want to recognize the engineer of record who's involved in the meeting Friday with the mayor's office, who's been on the project since 2012 with the land use, and that'd be MAP LTD, Pat Fuhrer. So Pat could not be on the call, but we're engaged almost daily or weekly, and we have weekly calls, and he's an intimate part of our team board. Shannon.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
yep. Yeah, that's great. Great to hear.
I will follow up. Like I said, we have ongoing traffic studies going on and access design. We also have soil borings for all the water quality infiltration items. Those are being undertaken as well right now. So,
and have you started to reach out to WashDOT?
Yeah, WashDOT's already given a preliminary comment letter, and we're going through the process now of answering their questions and their questions or challenges, if you would. So we're going through that right now.
Okay, does that wrap the presentation then?
That's all I have. So.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you very much for allowing us some time to give you an update on the public facilities. I think it's exciting for the area and the region, and I look forward to our group continuing the process. Thank you to the Kpfd and Port of Bremerton, two great public partners. Shannon, great input too, everything. Appreciate it.
It's looking good, guys.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to thank my team also. And, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of partners, but I think at the end of the day, we're going to have something that our community and region will be very proud of. It'll obviously help tourism and really attract a lot of people to the area. So very proud of what we're doing, and finally really glad to see images. We can, talk all day long, but when you start to see the structures, it really hits home. So thanks team, and thanks everybody on the board, and thanks Russ.
You're welcome. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Joel.
All right,
everybody.
Thank you for the presentation. Russ, I'll let you move everybody out of the panelist position.
Okay.
And
Thank
we'll
you,
move
guys.
back over to our agenda.
Just 1 second here. Okay. All right, let me get to the next spot. All right, good.
All right, so we're at item number 5 in our agenda, 5A under new business. We'll make the operating expenses blanket voucher. We'll make that 5C. But for 5A, the Kpfd Washington State audit results. Russ, would you speak to this?
Sure. So our audit was completed and we did well. No findings at all. So in other words, we're in compliance. They did have 3 recommendations. One of those was with regard to board compensation. Need to identify the payments to the board. It wasn't supported by the meeting minutes. So in other words, when they were submitted to be paid, it didn't reflect in the minutes that they were approved. And so at least I couldn't find meeting minutes that reflected that during the periods of time in which they called that. And remember that this is over FY18 to FY20. So board compensation, just keeping track of that a little closer. And let's see, what else did they say? They said we are completely in compliance with the ILAs, which they were pleased with. With overtime, there was some minutes that we couldn't find where overtime was approved by the board. I'm talking about overtime for Mike, where it wasn't approved by the board, but showed the expenditure was paid out to Mike. And that was it. This is just a summary of all the different portions of it. It went well. They were appreciative. They made mention of the cooperation to be able to get them timely information as quickly as possible, and so it went fairly quickly. But yeah, we came away unscathed, and now I'm better prepared for when we go into next year.
You said there were 3 recommendations. I only heard you address the first one, and maybe I just missed the second and third. But what were the second and third for recommendations?
The second recommendation is to make sure that that there are board minutes reflect approval of anything like an overtime compensation. And so that was in Mike's pay and Mike's request for overtime compensation. I couldn't find the minutes that reflected that he'd been approved for those, even though the payroll showed that he was paid for it. And then the third one was, maybe it was just those 2.
All right. Any other questions that anybody has with the audit results?
Just those 2.
Russ, this is Walt. We do this every 3 years?
Right. So we'll come up again in 2024.
Thank you.
All right. Hearing no other comment or question, let's move on to item number 5B. Looking at a board retreat. I was talking to Russ today, and we were looking at a date in March here where we could get together, and maybe for a 4-hour time over lunch. But Russ, any other details that you want to speak to besides saying that we're aiming to do this soon?
Yeah, March 11th is what we're going to target, 10:30 to 2:30, and then we would bring lunch in, probably sub sandwiches or something like that. I'm going to check with Gary Lindsay, who has the title company building off of Ridgetop. And so if we can use their conference room, it's big enough for us all to be able to get together and meet. If you've been inside that building, it's right next to the KETA office, Kitsap Economic Development office. So that's what we're targeting for. If you want to pencil that in for March 11th from 10:30 to 2:30, I'll lock it in when I talk to Gary to make sure that space is available. And then I will let you all know. And then, of course, we'll let the public know too. It is considered a special meeting.
And Russ, if two things on that. One, March 11th, I don't know if I can do because I have court that day, but I think that hearing's actually going to get kicked out. But if Gary can't do that, I mean, my conference room is always available. You know, those of you who've done the interviews or other things, it's also pretty large too. So we can always do that.
Oh, great, Phil. Yeah. Okay. That'll be wonderful. Okay. Well, I'll check with Gary first. And if Gary is a no, then Jim, I'll swing back around with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Russ, that particular time conflicts with me. My dog has a beauty shop appointment during that time frame, but I will make every effort to change that.
Okay. Is everybody going to be in town that's here? Is everybody going to be in town for that?
Between Walt's vacations and his dog's different appointments, we really are having a lot of conflicts, Walt.
No, I'm good for the 11th. I'll change his beauty shop.
All right. All right.
I'm tentatively planned to fly to Denver on the 9th, but that has not been confirmed.
Okay, John. Aaron, how about you? Okay, good. All right, and then Phil, you said you'd be out of town?
No, I've got a court hearing set for 1:30 that day, but I can almost guarantee it's going to be kicked out. So I'm not terribly concerned about it.
Pat, does that work for you?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay, great. Okay, and then I don't think Brian Waller's on, but I'll double check with him to invite him as well.
All right.
Russ, I'm sorry, Russ, what time was that? It was from when to when?
10:30 to 2:30 is what I'm thinking. And then I'll have lunch brought in.
Okay.
So I had told Russ before the meeting that I'd like to take one of these out of the consent agenda just as an example of how do we do this so that we learn the language to it, that everybody gets comfortable with it. So I'd like to take a look at blanket voucher number 06, February 2022, which covers operating expenses. And so this is what is behind that. And all of you have seen that in your consent agenda packet already. But are there any, could I receive a motion to approve this blanket voucher?
I'll move to approve the blanket voucher as presented.
Thank you, Aaron. And then a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, John. And now any discussion, any questions or comment?
I guess just for the sake of running through this exercise, I'll just ask Russ. I see advertising from Visit Kitsap on there. Do we know about advertising?
Yeah, it's the agreement that was made with them 3 years ago, where it's $24,000 over the course of the year, $2,000 a month, and that's to help us promote the projects that we're doing and anything else that the PFD may be doing. I talked to, when Darren and I were talking about the retreat, one of the discussions, one of the things I'd like to talk about is how do we take advantage of this advertising that we've got going, and how do we promote the PFD in general terms? And we can take full advantage of Visit Kitsap. They've hired a marketing director named Kelly Kitchell. Some of you may know Kelly. She's extremely smart and extremely bright. Has got some great marketing ideas. Her and I have talked quite a bit. And so I think we can get some real bang for our buck. That's what that advertising is for. It's a monthly reoccurring bill over the course of the year.
Thank you, John, for that question. Any others? All right. Well, with that discussion, let's vote on this blanket voucher. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Thank you for going through that exercise with me. So that kind of gives us our process for how you'll pull one of these out for future consent agendas if you would like to. Let's move on to item number 6, our financial reports. And Russ, I'll hand that over to you and Susan.
Okay. Susan, are you online? I know she was previously. Susan, can you hear us?
Sorry, yes, I'm here.
Let me, okay, go right ahead, Susan.
Oh, okay. What we're looking at here first is the profit and loss budget performance as of December of 2021. This takes the 968 fund, which is our operations fund, and it lines out where we are concerning our budget for the year. Now, there are a handful of things on here that are over and under that sort of a thing. There has been a lot of activity with the transition, but to the new program by the county. They've been working really hard to do the full transition to the new system. And there are still a couple of questions that come up here and there, but this is essentially where we are according to our budget. If there are any questions, I don't know if anybody had a chance to take a look at this before. This fund, our plan for transferring money is connected to the amount that we need for the year. So this is kind of a zeroed out fund each year. And so as you can see at the very bottom, there's like a $12.46 effective balance in that account, which is by design. At the beginning of each year, we determine what we need for each quarter or each session, and we transfer it as needed. There are not a lot of surprises from any of the other months that we've presented this, but are there any questions on the December? There's still some things that are being ironed out by the county, so this might not be the absolute final rendition of this, but it's very good.
And let me talk briefly about this.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
The county transitioned over to Workday, and as you all know, about midway through last year. But they discovered that they'd made some errors on our part in transferring funds and putting them into different accounts. And so they've been correcting that. But Susan and I have been getting reports, have been conflicting reports. So we feel like the county is finally able to get beyond that and to iron out the wrinkles that they've had in the process. And so we feel like they're on the right track now. Susan and I both feel that December report, end of the year report, and then the January report is a little bit iffy. We feel more confident that we'll be going to February and we do the February report next month, but that'll be far more accurate. So anyway, just that's kind of a caveat to as you see the figures. The one thing is nothing really jumps out, so it's like very alarming to either Susan or I that goes, holy cow, that's way off.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. Thank you for that, Russ.
What is the tax year? Is it calendar?
Yes.
Okay. So these are not necessarily our final December numbers. They're still, you said they might.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be a little bit of movement. I think a lot of it has to do with how they present between the different funds and just some things that they had to correct at the end of the year. They did a large transition for use tax, and several of the items that they paid the use tax on our behalf, not at our request, but on our behalf, were there were some errors in how it was applied. And so then they had to reverse all of that and then put it back in. So there's some overlap between which month some of this activity actually happened. And we're still sorting through that. And we're just still sorting through all of that. Anyway, this is the financial position for where we are in each of the funds for the beginning and ending balances and where we were throughout the year. And this is consistent with what is being reported in our accounts is what we have available. The statement of revenue and expense by fund, it's the other side. Now you'll see here where one of my questions is that down towards the bottom, the 80,000 account, ask my accountant. There is a $34,681.31 question that I have. I can't find where they're balancing the other side to that. I'm asking for clarification of that. It's what's needed in order to balance to all the rest of the figures that they have in the system. And so my anticipation is that that those questions will be answered and I'll be able to present these after that is answered by the county. The number has changed. We've had the numbers twice and they're different each time. And the ending balances aren't necessarily matching the beginning balances, which isn't new for the way that they do these. But it is something that I'm not satisfied that it's done yet.
And one of the things I wanted to talk about with regard to the funds and so forth is that if you remember a couple of months ago, we talked about how funds come in through the state tax rebate, and then the county then takes a portion of that and puts it in the debt service, which is the 286 account. And then in the 977, there's basically two different accounts in 977. There's 977 cash, and then there's 977 investment. And so there's a pool of money that sits in cash out of the investment amount. So when we need to pull money into the 968, which is our operating expenses, it comes out of the 977 cash. So I pay close attention to what's in the 977 cash. And if it starts to get low, then I ask the county then to transfer money from 977 investment into the 977 cash account. So then we can move that over to 968. And the reason why we operate that way is at least the 977 is generating some interest. Not a lot of interest, but at least it's generating some interest. And so typically we keep the 968 fund down to a fairly low amount because we want to be able to have our money invested and make as much money as possible. So hopefully that helps to understand how some of this money moves around each month.
Yeah, it's very helpful. And this is just a more detailed reporting of the financial position. The other was a summary. This is more detailed of each line item and how the money comes in and through. The next one is the more detailed of the profit and loss statement. It's just the other reports are just a summary of these forms here. Now we come into the financial position by fund for January. And I did not do the form for the 968 fund because I think there are so many things that there are still questions on that I would like to be able to have those resolved before I go through that process. But here it shows that as of the end of January in the 968 fund that we have $9,156 in that account. Russ and I have been talking about the earmark of, okay, how much are we going to transfer at the beginning of the year? How much are we going to keep on hand? How does this move in concert with the rest? And so that'll be something that we work on continually there. The next one, Russ, is the statement of, this is the expanded version of that same one. Here's the profit and loss summary. This one, oh no, this is another statement of position. Sorry about that. Here's the revenue and expenses for the month of January. You'll see that the question, the ask my accountant question is 16,551.26 that is in question here. This is just in the 1 month. And I think that these are going to be answered in their transfers in and out and correcting previous period transactions. We've talked about it. I have copious notes on what I have found of where I think that the differences are. And we're presenting what we know on this. And definitely it's not done. I'll continue to work with the county. They have a lot on their plate, especially in December and January. And taking their time to be able to go through this line by line is extremely important, but it's also impractical to try and take their time during the month of January and even February. So we'll continue to pursue that. They're very helpful. They're trying very hard to get everything done. It's just not complete yet. So
this is an example here, this $40,000. This is an example where I asked the county to transfer over $40,000 from the 977 cash account over into our 968 so we could pay the bills in the month of January. So that's why that's shows an income of $40,000 into 968. Okay.
And then they expanded here. Okay. There's a new fund that has shown up on their reports, and that is this one, the fund balance unassigned. And they have it there for the 968 and the 977 and unrestricted assets. Those are new accounts in the last 2 months. And that I think is going to answer some of our questions. I think it's a transfer in, transfer out type of an account that maybe needs to have an additional entry, because I can see the unrestricted net assets is very close to the same amount as the plug figure that we needed to have on the Ask My Accountant. It just doesn't show us where the other side of that is. And so I'm still researching that, and I'm sure we'll have answers to that very soon. I don't think that our books are in trouble, but they're certainly not complete because there still are some questions. As a result of that, Russ and I have been talking about options of how we can do things just a little bit differently. I've been pulling information off the reports, and we're talking about how to improve the system with the skill set that he brings to the table, and to be able to compare more appropriately with what the county is doing instead of just taking it directly off their reports. So we're working through the issue. We know that it's something that has to be resolved, and it seems that the last 2 months have been the worst. And it's always been an issue at the end of the year when they do their closing entries from all of the independent funds within the county and then start the new. They've never had December's ending balance has never matched the January beginning balance since I started here. And so that's something that we usually need to match their reports. They don't always show us every entry that goes along with how those balances accrued. But that's kind of an end of year thing. Russ?
I did want to report that the county did go ahead and renew our bonds. So our bonds are good to go now for the next 16 years. So that's a relief. That's something that we don't have to worry about.
Just a second. So what you're saying is that the county has approved that they're going to push out the smaller amount for the next 16 years. Is that
right? Remember that our bonds expired in December of 2020, and then it wasn't clear to us whether or not that the treasurer was going to renew those bonds or not. And we thought there for a time that we may have to take them on ourselves.
Yeah, that's huge news. That's wonderful news. That's great. I'll look forward to hearing more of the details of that, because there were different choices for how much we were going to push out and how we were going to define that. So that's great news.
So this is the dollar amount that we've been told they were not going to do for us, right?
Yeah, I think, Aaron, that whole conversation is probably too detailed to get into. Yeah, but yes, there was certainly conflicting information that we have received for the last number of years. And so this is just really good news for this gives confidence that we'll continue to receive that tax rebate, and that we can do it in partnership with the county rather than having to go out on our own. And so that was our desire. That was our number one option. And so it's great news to hear that that's happened.
Yeah, it was up
or been
air.
agreed to.
Well, it was up in the air in November when I met with the treasurer, and she said they hadn't made a decision yet on whether or not they were going to renew those bonds. But then, and I didn't hear it from the treasurer, but I heard it for somebody that works in the Treasury Department that it had been renewed in January.
All right. Any other questions?
When we decide to sell some amount of new bonds, the county can get a better rate than we would probably be able to get on our own.
Yeah, most certainly. They're 2A or 3A. And if we had to go out on our own, we'd have to find a third party to help us with that. And obviously, we don't have a track record. So I think it'd be really hard for us.
All right. Anything left with the financial report? I think the slide next for.
Yeah. So my question actually goes hand in hand with this one, Russ. And was going to circle back, but you kind of answered that question. They renewed our bonds because I believe that is a stipulation of receiving future funding. But when we had spoken with, and I'm going to draw a blank on their name, but basically our bonding guys, and now that we see the continued growth and or new trajectory of growth, bringing those guys back to us to have a conversation on what's that true dollar amount, right? We're going to have some conversations that are going to need to be had between the other projects outside of the Port Orchard project. Is that one you basically got their funding up front in their ILA, what we have that we're going to be able to spend. So there was a lot in there. Russ, I'll let you respond.
No, yeah, you're exactly right. Let me, I'm going to reshare my screen here. Can you all see the spreadsheet there?
No.
Not yet.
Okay. The one in the agenda got cut off, so it didn't show FY 2022.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
So this shows where we were at in 2022 in January. And remember, we're always 3 months in the arrears. Okay. So we finished December at 177,670. January 178,674. And then I just got the figures today. That's why I'm reporting out on 197,557.
Wow.
And the percentages over here just shows a percentage difference from the previous period, right? So we were 12.5% higher than January of 2021, 2.5% higher than February of 2022. Don't really pay attention to these numbers yet because they're going to change as the year goes on, right? On what the actual percentage difference is going to look like. But what you can see is so far this year, we've received 377,231. If you average that out over 12 months, it's 31,352. But obviously, don't pay attention to this figure either because it's going to change as the year changes. But so far, we're off to a good start. And this figure here is actually the second highest that we've had in a year. 204 was our highest here. And then 177, 714, and then that. We're doing good, kicking off the new year with those. Debt service came down. It's typically 70,000. It came down this month as an adjustment was made. So it showed our net income, and then that was our expenses for January. And remember, that's not just operating expenses. That includes payroll as well.
Okay. Any other items on the financials that you wanted to let us know about?
I do. Let me get to it really quickly. Let me reshare my screen. Okay. Cindy and I have been working on this, Cindy from Barker Creek Financial. And what we've tried to do is we tried to make a clear picture for all of you, including ourselves, to keep track of what was in the original ILA, any of the invoices that had been paid, what the invoice amounts were, what the invoice numbers were, the date that they were approved by the board, the date that they were paid, and so on and so forth. So this is pretty exhaustive and complete. Now, right before this meeting, I got the actual amounts that were paid here and when they were paid. So right now we show, this is for Pacific Northwest and Circuit Northwest. I'm sorry, POB, Circuit Northwest, $144,000, which we paid earlier this month. But that does not include what else we have paid. So we have paid this $502,300. So all of these invoices have been paid as well. Then in 2018, these invoices were paid as well. So phase one at $60,000 and phase two at $502,300 were paid, and then we paid $144,000. So you take 502 and then so basically 562,300 and add to that, and that's how much has been paid for Port of Bremerton. Then you can see down at the bottom what the totals are for each year that we paid out, and then total paid to date that we paid out, and then just subtracting what we agreed to in the ILA and what's been paid and what the remaining balance is down at the bottom. So this will always be, as I update it, it will always be on the OneDrive. So if you're wanting to take a look at a particular figure or you want to take a look at a certain invoice, you can pull it up right here. Any questions on this matrix here?
Love this matrix. It's just my memory. It's gonna get that.
Aaron, I can't really hear you.
Oh, really? I'm up all the way. How's that?
There you go.
Okay, face the computer. So it's on the South Kitsap one, and I'm not sure if it's my memory or what, but the $1 million for which I believe was for the land purchase, and it reflects in May. Didn't that happen like in November? Did it happen as early as May?
No, it did. Well, it was approved in May. So
okay.
Yeah, board approved 524. No, you're right. I should have changed that date to when it paid in yeah, I think it was November, Aaron. But yeah, it's right there, that $1 million.
Okay, that makes sense.
Thank you, Russ. This is what we've been asking for. We appreciate it.
Yeah, great work, Russ, for putting this together.
Absolutely, yeah. And Cindy gets a ton of credit too. We've been tag teaming it together. And Cindy, I will get this up to our shared drive or to the Dropbox tomorrow. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So Russ, this is Walt. Then our remaining commitment to the Circuit of the Northwest, or actually to Port of Bremerton, I guess, is 9 more annual payments of 144. Is that right?
Well, and actually, so we've already paid. I got verification today. We paid $502,300 in phase two.
Right.
Phase one, we paid $60,000. So if you add that all up to the total, if the original ILA was $1.4 million, we paid $144. You have to tack on to there the additional $562,300. So it would reflect something different than the 1.2.
Well, I think those earlier phases were before we agreed to the 10-year deal.
They were. Okay.
That's correct, Russ.
Yeah.
Those aren't the correct assumptions for starting. So those two amounts before were agreed to separately. Okay. The 10 years at 144,000 were agreed on a third time.
Yeah. Okay.
And so the total will be bigger than that 144,000 number times and the 1,400,000.
I'll just change the ILA to reflect this, and in this case, then it's accurate. We still owe nearly 1.3. But yes, Walt, you're exactly right. Every February, $144,000.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Russ, thanks for the continued cleanup and bringing everything together. We appreciate it. So let's go back to item number 7 and wrap up our meeting here. Ongoing business, the Kpfd business credit card. Where are we on that?
So John and I have spoken. We both agree that Kitsap Bank would be the one to go with. The interest rate would be 19% APR, but we're not concerned about that because we'll be paying the balance of the credit card off every month. There's a $25 annual fee, so it's really easy to do. So the application process is fairly simple. The bank is asking for quite a bit of information that I'll have to provide to them. One of the things we need to determine tonight is who is going to be on the signature card. Is it going to be the executive officers? Is it going to be the executive officers and myself? We need to make a determination on that. And then the other thing is, who is it that we want to have credit card, have possession of a credit? Is it myself and the treasurer, myself and the president or the chairman? So those are two things that we need to determine. John, is there anything you wanted to add to our discussion about it?
No, I just think that we might board need to be open based off of previous history in working with Kitsap Bank. There may be a resolution in front of us next month to make that fully authorized. My 2 cents on who should be on that. If we want to leave it bare bones, should be the chair, the treasurer, and our ED. But I say, why wouldn't you add in the third member of the executive team with the vice chair?
The other thing too that we need to determine too is credit limit. I personally don't think we need any more than $10,000 credit limit on it.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think 10,000 is good. I agree with John about the signature. You might as well go ahead and put the vice chair on. And then as to who should hold the credit card, my thought is one card and have the executive director hold it. Any reason for anybody else to have a copy of it?
Yeah, I agree with Aaron. Just the executive director should probably hold it.
Yep, I agree.
That's fine by me. If one of the executive committee needs to use the card for something, we'll track down the ED.
That sounds like we have a consensus then. For that, John, you were saying a resolution for next time?
Yeah, in my history and working with them in other organizations, that they may require it. So they may not, based off of the documentation that we provide, but we just may need to be open to that for next month.
So what do Russ and John, what do you need then? Do you need any kind of a motion tonight with those parameters that we just said, or just wait on it and let it come through once we have everything figured out? Sound good? Okay, I see John nodding his head. So with that, it sounds like we've addressed that issue and we've got our decision. We'll have the executive officers and the ED have signature, and we will have one card which will be in the possession of the ED. And so that's our plan. Any other items for tonight? Excellent. Well, good to see all of your faces. Thank you for your work, Russ. And at this time, I'd like to adjourn the meeting of the Kitsap Public Facilities District. Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.
Good night all.